Necropolis of the Damned is a new expansion coming for Across the Obelisk on December 2nd. It's bringing a lot of interesting stuff, most notably a new Act 4 option, which is something people have been asking for a long time to increase the variety from game to game. But it's also going to introduce 2 new heroes along with some new buffs and debuffs that those heroes in particular work with. So today I just thought we would take a quick look at those 2 new heroes. We're just going to look at them here in the character select screen, take a look at their traits, their starting items, and maybe also take a look at their skins and some of the new perks that have been added to the game. So no gameplay today, just a quick preview of the new heroes. My name is Bludgeon, by the way. Thanks for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel if you like this stuff. I mostly play Dune Imperium Digital online, but Across the Obelisk is one of my favorite games. So I'm very happy to have the chance to do this little preview for you. Okay, so first of all, the character select screen looks quite different from the last time I played. I'm not sure if this is new for this update or if it was in a very recent update, but you can see it's quite different. You know, the heroes used to be up on the left here. Now they're down here, and you can't see them all on one screen anymore. I guess there's just too many to show, which is unfortunate. I did really like the ability to just kind of take a quick glance at all of them and figure out what I wanted to do. No longer an option. You can sort, warriors, scouts, mages, healers, and multi-class down here. Okay, well, let's take a look at the new heroes. They are both multi-class heroes. So here is Nevermoor. Nevermoor is a Death Knight, which is pretty cool. He is a healer warrior multi-class hero, a warrior who is proficient in the way of the healer. Let's take a little look at his story here. All right, so once crowned Prince of the Dusklands, Nevermoor watched helplessly as the Count's corruption spread through his homeland, turning his kin into monsters and himself into something far worse. Now a brooding were-raven bound by duty and grief, Nevermoor wandered the Witch Woods longing to reclaim his throne, even if it meant wielding the same darkness that stole it from him. Okay, it's a very cool looking dude, first of all. Look at this guy. Once crowned Prince of the Dusklands, this Raven Death Knight guy. All right, so let's take a look at his stuff. Over here, we can see his traits. So there's a few different ways you can look at it. Oops. Take me a while to kind of work my way around this new screen. Anyway, let's look at his traits over here. So innate, Rune Weaver. So the Death Knight here, kind of similar to the Death Knight in World of Warcraft. I don't know if that's where this inspiration comes from, but he works with runes that kind of do different things. So he's got a blue rune, which increases fortify by +1 per charge. In addition to this, upon reaching 2 charges, blocking damage grants 10 shield. Okay, so that's pretty cool. So having block and shield as a warrior is obviously very good because you can protect yourself this round and next round. Upon reaching 3 charges of blue rune, blocking damage also grants 10 shield to all allies. So if you want to focus on defense, build up your blue runes. Maximum charges 3, can't be purged unless specified. Okay. Rune Green, I assume some of the wording will be worked on before the release here. Green Rune, healing done +2 per charge. In addition to this, upon reaching 2 charges, heal done grants 2 vitality. Very nice to heal and give max health at the same time. Upon reaching 3 charges, heal done grants 2 vitality to all allies, okay? So a little bit of a buff for yourself and then a little bit more buffs the whole team. Max charges 3, can't be purged unless specified. Red Rune, Mark +1 per charge. So that's interesting. Maybe a Mark-focused warrior here. In addition to this, upon reaching 2 charges of Red Rune, damaging an enemy applies Mark on them. That is quite nice. Upon reaching 3 charges, damaging an enemy also applies Mark on target sides. So I like this a lot. I like the idea of spreading marks out a whole bunch. And I'm already starting to think about like combinations of trying to just stack lots of marks on people. Okay, so those are the way his runes work, blue, green, and red. Now, how do we actually get them? Okay, down at the bottom it says Rune Weaver. This is his innate trait. When you play a card, for every 2 energy spent, gain a rune. Okay, so if it was a damaging card, I guess, gain a red rune. If you gain defenses, gain a blue rune. If it was a healing spell, gain a green rune. So I'm not sure exactly the definition of those words. If it means it's if damaging means it's an attack card, and defense for blue and healing spell for green. I'm not sure what damaging means, if it actually has to damage the enemy or if it just has to be like an attack card. We'll have to wait and see on that. But I like that idea. You're just kind of passively going to be gaining runes based on what kind of cards you play. So as you can see, you're not limited to only one. You can be building up all three of these kinds of runes at the same time, theoretically, though obviously your focus will be split then. All right, so let's take a look at his level 2. Obsidian Imprint. I guess maybe we should look at his cards first. Let's look at his armor here. Okay, so Dusk Forged Armor is his starting thing, 5% shadow resist and +1 to overpower. What is it called? Powerful? Powerful charges, right. Okay. I mean, that's nice. Having +1 built-in powerful, that's nothing to sneeze at. All right, initial cards. Check this out. Shadow Blade. Melee attack, deal 7 and then 4 to the sides. Apply Dark and then Dark to the sides. That's a great card to start with. So already you're going to be thinking about trying to build a synergistic Shadow team. Makes sense for a Death Knight. He has Renews built into the deck. That's a pretty strong card to have in your base deck. Healing and regen. Shadow Mend, thematically appropriate. War Seal, this is a new one. Target a monster melee attack, deal 3 and apply a mark, repeat 2. That's pretty nice. Bastion Flow, that's another new one. Okay, so here's one of the new buffs. Gain 2 Infuse and 2 Reinforce. So what does Infuse do? We can see there it says increases the effect of Reinforce, Insulate, and Courage by 50%. So it's a buff that buffs other buffs. Okay. Reinforce on target increases physical damage by +1 per infused charge. Insulate on target increases elemental damage by +1 per infused charge. And Courage on target increases mystical damage by +1 per infused charge. Max charge is 10. Remove 1 at the start of the turn. So that's a pretty cool thing, I think, because not only does it boost their defensive abilities of Reinforce, Insulate, and Courage, which is quite nice, but it also means those normally defensive buffs turn into offensive buffs at the same time. So that's pretty interesting, I think. So there's Infuse. Okay, and he's got that built into his deck. He's got a Push Forward in his starting deck. That's pretty good. And this Rune Catalyst. Okay, look at that. I love it. Gain 2 powerful and then 1 of each type of rune. Okay, super cool. All right, so I like this guy already. I love his aesthetic. I like the mix of like, this is kind of just appeals to me. I like the mix of like dark and regen. Those are 2 of my favorite mechanics in Across the Obelisk. Okay, let's take a look at his level up traits. On the left side here, Obsidian Imprint. Dark and Mark charges +1. This is an enchantment on self. Damage with hit, deal 8 damage and apply Dark and Marks equal to your red runes. Okay, so that could get interesting. Last 5 uses. Okay, we'll just go along the left side before we go along the right side. Here's the level 3 on the left. Reaping. At 3 red runes, reduce the cost of the damage cards in your hand by 1 until they're discarded. Okay, nice offensive boost. Level 4 Cataclysm. An enchantment on self. Damage with hit, deal physical and shadow damage to all monsters where X equals, I guess, all of your runes added together times 7. Okay. And then purge your red runes. So you want to build your runes up and then just blast everybody. Now this, notice, does not actually damage. This is not a card that deals damage itself. You got to play this and then hit the monsters to trigger it. Which is in a way kind of interesting because you can play this and then wait to build up your runes until you're ready to use it. It lasts 1 use. Okay, and then level 5, Glare of Doom. Mark +1. Mark on enemies now lead to +2 damage per charge. That's a big buff. At 3 blue runes, reduce the cost of the skill cards in your hand by 1 until they're discarded. All right, very cool. So that's the offensive side. Let's look at the right side. It's probably more healing focused. Maybe defense and healing together. Let's see. Death's Caress. Enchantment for 0 on self. All resistances -10%. Okay, so you're making yourself more vulnerable there. But what's the payoff? Damage with hit. Apply, what's that thing called? Decay, right. Decay and vulnerable where X equals your blue runes times 2. So you can load somebody, and maybe if you have like an AoE, you could load like the whole enemy team with Decay and Vulnerable. And that lasts 6 uses, by the way. It's not just one hit. It's the next 6 times you deal damage with a hit, you're putting those debuffs on. And those are serious debuffs. You know, Vulnerable is super nice just to make all of your damage your team is dealing more powerful. And then Decay is really nice as well. Just like wrecking the healing on enemies can be very helpful. And then, of course, there are ways to use perks to make Decay do more stuff as well, like decrease shadow resistance and stuff like that. And it's sometimes not an easy debuff to get out there. So this guy having kind of innate access to pretty easily throw it out is pretty interesting. All right, that's the level 2. Level 3, Replenishing. At 3 green runes, reduce the cost of the healing spell cards in your hand by 1 until they're discarded. Okay. Level 4, Dark Succor. Enchantment on self again. This guy does a lot of self enchants. When you play a healing spell, all heroes gain Reinforce and Courage, and they gain an amount equal to all of your runes put together. So add up however many runes you have, and they're going to get that many Reinforce and that many Courage, and then purge your green runes, and that's a one-time use. So that's pretty similar to the Cataclysm idea. Build it up until you're ready to use it. And remember that, you know, that Reinforce and Courage can get really boosted by the Infuse here. The defensive bonuses being boosted, but then also turning it into an offensive buff at the same time. So it's interesting possibilities coming here. And then finally, level 5, Runic Empowerment, which says when Nevermoor applies Reinforce or Courage, all heroes gain 1 Infuse 3 times per turn. So that's really nice because, you know, okay, we're getting these buffs, but then how do we get the Infuse to buff the buffs? Okay, well here, the Infuse comes with those buffs up to 3 times per turn. At 3 blue runes, reduce the cost of defense cards in your hand by 1 until they're discarded. All right, I'm very interested in trying this guy out just based on reading all of this. It sounds super cool. I'm just thinking about all the cool team comps. You know, having a good tank that can do some of this stuff, or you don't have to use him as a tank, but the fact that you can is pretty exciting. I like the flexibility here. Okay, let's take a look at his skins. Oops. All right, so we've got the Death Knight. That's the default. Grim Reaper here, kind of a green and gold theme. And then Masquerader. It's like some kind of creepy carnival, I don't know, guy. I'm not sure exactly what's going on there, but he's got a top hat, so very stylish. And these are the ones that will, you know, come with the champion. You just need to level them up to get them. Okay, so that is Nevermoor. Let's take a look at the other new hero in this expansion. That is Velarion. Velarion, the Blood Mage. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at his story here. Born of noble blood and darker lineage, Velarion is the half-vampire son of the Count. So the Count, I think, is like the big boss in the new Act 4. All right, so Velarion is his son, and he's half vampire. I'm not sure what it means to be half vampire. I guess the Count is a vampire, so his dad is a vampire, but his mom wasn't. Anyway, raised within the castle's cursed halls, groomed in the art of blood magic, he was slowly consumed by his father's influence until a final moment of clarity drove him to flee the castle. Now wandering the Dusklands, he seeks redemption through forbidden arts, channeling his blood magic to heal allies and punish those who spill innocent blood. All right, very cool. I wonder what this moment of clarity was. Maybe we'll find out some of that as we play. Okay, so let's take a look at his deal. Let's look at his first trait here just to get an idea. Bloodbound. When you apply bleed on enemies, apply 1 Leech. So Leech is one of the new debuffs in the game. We saw Infuse is one of the new buffs. Leech is one of the new debuffs. And what does that do? All resistances -1 per charge. Okay, so that's good already. All resists. Then, upon reaching 25 charges, it explodes. I love exploding charges. Remove all charges, then apply 1 bleed per charge, and heal all allies for 1 HP per charge. Remove 1 at the end of the turn. Okay, I love this. I love it a lot. I like the fact that, you know, each stack is doing something pretty useful, -1 resist. But then I do love that blowing up at 25 charges. It's one of the reasons I really enjoy Dark. And I love Bleed. So this is like perfectly designed to excite me. Both these heroes so far seem very cool to me. All right, let's take a look at his cards. So he starts with a Blood Amulet. Every turn, cast Exsanguinate. We can see Exsanguinate there is all monsters apply 2 bleed and 1 leech. That is really good. To start with an item that bleeds and leeches all monsters every turn. That's a great starting item. All right, so like your bleed teams are off to a great start with this guy. Okay, let's take a look at his cards. So he starts with Vampiric Touch, very thematically appropriate. Curse of Blood, this is a new one here. A curse spell, target monster, deal 8 shadow damage and apply 4 leech, 4 bleed, and 1 dark. Love that. I love it a lot. He's got Shadow Flame, deal 5 shadow damage, and then transform dark into double that much burn. Oh my goodness. That's pretty cool. Okay, I like this a lot. He's got Vitalize. Nice. Oh yeah, by the way, he is a healer mage. That's his dual class here. So that's why he has Vitalizes in his deck. Okay, I like Vitalize. Life Tap. Again, thematically very appropriate. It's an interesting card too, especially because, you know, he's going to be doing healing the whole team. So losing health for an energy, probably something you can handle. Arcane Drain is a skill here. Target any monster, apply 12 bleed and 6 leech. That's pretty big. And then finally, Vampiric Frenzy. It's got Vanish, hits all monsters to deal shadow damage and fire damage, and the damage it deals is based on how much bleed is on them. Okay, so normally I would look at this and say, well, yeah, but what if you don't have any bleed? Well, there's gonna be bleed because of his starting item, so that automatically makes this reasonable. Okay, very cool starting deck. Let's take a look at his traits. Starting on the left side, level 2, Bleeding Blight. Enchantment, self, 0. Twice a turn for every burn or shadow charge you apply 1 bleed. Last 10 uses. Okay. I love it when debuffs spawn more debuffs. You know, I love those items where it's like, you know, every time you put a dark, put a burn. Every time you put a burn, put a bleed. That kind of stuff is very fun to me. So having that built in as his level 2 is awesome. Level 3, Crimson Ripple. Bleed +1. Bleed on enemies also leads to -0.5 fire resistance per charge. Applying bleed on enemies also applies 1 burn, 1 dark to the target's sides. 2 times per turn. 2 times per turn you can do that. So bleed on one guy puts burn and dark on the guys beside him. Oh my god, I love this so much. All right, Crimson Ripple, that's level 3. Level 4, Blood Bargain. Blood Bargain costs 1. It's an enchantment on self. When you play a card, for every energy used, lose 10 health. Okay, so if you play a 4-cost card, you're losing 40 health. But then gain 1 energy. Oh. Okay. That is a Blood Bargain. Last 1 use. So essentially, it means the next time you play a card, you're going to be refunded the energy for it, but you're going to have to pay in health. So you better have good max health on this guy, I would say, to give yourself a little bit of room to do stuff like that. Okay, level 5, Energy Spike. When Leech explodes on enemies, grant 1 energize to all heroes. Ooh, that is great. Okay, let's take a look at the right-hand side. Life Surge, level 2. Self enchantment, Leech charges +1. When you apply Leech, all heroes gain 1 vitality. Last 4 uses. Okay, great. So this is, I was just saying, you're gonna need good max health on this guy. Well, if you go this way for level 2, then you're gonna naturally be giving max health to your whole team every time you apply Leech, and you're gonna be applying more Leech than usual. Okay. Level 3, Voracious. Leech +1. Leech's explosions heal is increased by 50% and additionally grants 1 regeneration to all heroes. Regeneration's like my favorite thing in the whole game. I've just always loved regeneration abilities in every game, and I really love it in this game as well. So that's super fun. Yes. Okay. But I want all of these things. I don't want to have to choose. All right. Level 4, Forbidden Feast. Enchantment on self for 1. Damage with hit. Heal all heroes for 10% of the damage done and apply 4 Leech to all monsters lasts 3 uses. Okay. So he goes and just, you can see in the picture, he just goes and bites somebody. And then not only does he drink the blood, but I guess does he baby bird the blood to his teammates? Let's just say it's magic, okay? I don't want to think about it. All right, yeah, Forbidden Feast. It does sound kind of forbidden. All right, level 5, Hemostasis. Hemostasis says, when Leech explodes on enemies, grant 1 Vitality and 1 Inspire to all heroes. Okay. So here, when it explodes, it gives regen, and then later it will give regen, 1 Vitality, and Inspire. I'm just so excited about this. All right, so that's your hero. Now let's take a look at his skins. Blood Mage, the default, pretty cool. Blood Sorcerer, okay. A little more metal kind of look, I guess. And then Blood Alchemist, sort of the Halloween type skin, I guess. Pretty weird, but you know, you might want to have that look sometimes. Okay, so those are the heroes. Let's take a quick look at the perks now, because they have added perks for some of these new debuffs. And buffs. So for example, over here, we can see now there is a perk for Infuse. Okay, so you can choose one of these. This hero gains 1 Infuse at the start of combat. Okay. Infuse on this hero instead increases the effect of Reinforce, Insulate, and Courage by 75%. Normally it's 50%, but no longer increases damage. So if you really just want to focus on like tanking, that could be a decent option. When this hero gains Infuse, they gain 1 buffer. Interesting. Okay, I think that's all the new stuff on this page. Let's go over to physical damage here. We can see that there is a new Leech perk down here. So this one is Leech on enemies now leads to all resistances minus 1.5% instead of just minus 1%, but no longer heals on explosion. Leech on enemies explodes at 18 charges. I think the default is 25, right? Yeah. Okay. So those kinds of things are interesting, right? With Dark, like sometimes you want it to blow up more, but sometimes you don't, because you want to build the Dark up more to decrease the shadow resistance more, or you want to have a more like impactful explosion when you do get it. But sometimes it is helpful to do it more often. For example, if you want to trigger those, like when it explodes, gain, regen and whatever, that's an interesting way to go. Leech explosion on enemies applies chill instead of bleed. So, you can go ahead and figure out why you might want to do that, but I like these kinds of possibilities. We also now have a Rust perk. That says choose one of the following perks. Charges +1. Rust on enemies instead increases the effect of crack, poison, and slow by 20% per charge. Max charge is 12. And Rust on enemies increases Thorns damage taken by 5% per charge, but no longer prevents 1 reinforce per charge. I like that idea. If I want my Thorns buffed, I just want to go all in on Thorns. I love Thorns. Okay, I think that's it for this page. Elemental here, anything new? I don't think so. Mystical, yeah. So we now have a Zeal perk, charges +1. Zeal charges on heroes are instead removed by 1 at the end of turn. Zeal on this hero can stack up to 10 charges and instead increases all resistances by 5% per charge and healing received from Sanctify by 12% per charge, but no longer increases damage done. Okay, so they all kind of have like similar, themes, focus on defense rather than offense if you want to. Here's a Scourge buff, charges +1. Scourge on enemies also deals 1 shadow damage per burn charge. Interesting. Scourge on enemies also deals 1 shadow damage per insane charge. Okay, so choose which synergy you want, or get a team where each person picks a different one of these and just have them all work together. And then, was there another one? No. These are the same as the old ones. Okay, so there you go. There are the new perks. We've got a new character select screen. I think it's new here. We've got a couple of new perks for some of the new buffs and debuffs, and we've got 2 very cool looking new heroes. And like I said, the expansion also includes a whole new Act 4, which is going to be the main attraction for a lot of people. But yeah, I think this expansion is looking like maybe one of the more interesting ones in a while, just for that reason. So let me know what you think in the comments. Which hero are you most excited about using? What kind of team comps do you think you might try to pull with this? And I don't know, which skin do you like? So that's it. Thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.